Senator John McCain's acceptance speech at the Republican convention. It was the big event of the week, almost as big as the running mate speech. Mark Whitaker is NBC News' Washington bureau chief, and Ron Brownstein is the political director of Atlanta Media. First of all, I'm going to give you a chance to support the troops there, Mark. One of your troops was under balloon attack last night.
We were calling her Andrea of the 1,000 balloons.
I think Tom Brokaw called her Boom Boom last night. Anyway, let me ask you about this, the staging, since you're on right now, Mark. Republicans do seem to be better at staging these things. They get the balloon drop occurs on schedule. The Democrats that often get stuck up in the webbing up there. What did you think of the whole rollout of the new running mate and, of course, the refurbished candidacy of John McCain?
Well, I feel like I just got back from a week of Alaskan Idol. I mean, when you think about it, a week ago, most Americans didn't know who Sarah Palin was. The other night, 37 million people tuned in to watch her speech. She's on the cover of People magazine. It'll probably sell out. Clearly, she was the hit of this convention. I think last night's speech by McCain was, sort of did its job, but it was a little bit underwhelming by comparison. But look, what he had to accomplish this week was to unify the party. He came into the convention with a lot of doubts about him, not a lot of enthusiasm in the rank and file, and I think Sarah Palin did that for him. And I think without her, I think we would have been coming out of the convention feeling that it just didn't really measure up to the Democratic convention, that the momentum was on the Democratic side. I think she helped stop that. I think the polls are going to suggest that it's still a very, very tough and even race.
Let me ask you this, Ron. Is John McCain the Republicans' choice? I know he won the nomination fight fair and square. He knocked out all other contenders. Does he have the heart of the Republican Party? I just was taken again during this week when everybody was cheering the fact that this is a party of mavericks. Well, of course, the Republican Party is not a party of mavericks. It's a party of regular Republicans, middle-class people, mostly white, not very much diversity there, very much uniform in their thinking, lower taxes, they support the war. The idea of a party of mavericks, is that real or is that just the show business of this week?
Well, I think it was not a very popular idea a year ago, and I'm not sure it'll be as popular a year from now if he wins. The Republican Party is more ideologically uniform than the Democratic Party, whether you look at it by its electoral coalition or the folks in Congress. And if all the things that were being cheered this week, John McCain's willingness to break with his party, his disagreements with Bush, his tendency to set an independent course, those were the principal obstacles to him in winning the nomination initially. One reason why he didn't run so well among rank-and-file Republicans. And if he is president and is trying to govern that way, there will be a lot more conflict. Can I just disagree a little bit with Mark politely? I do not think John McCain accomplished what he needed to do last night. I think the speech will be looked back on as a missed opportunity because I think it reinforced him where he was strong rather than shoring him up where he was weak. Americans already believe John McCain is a person of integrity with an heroic personal story, and I think he was very effective in recounting those aspects of his career. But where he was weakest in the speech is where I think he ultimately will have the greatest need in this race, regardless of what happens in the next few days in the tracking polls. The biggest obstacle for McCain is the doubts among those swing voters that he has energy, vision, a plan to deal with their day-to-day concerns, and that's where the speech was clearly at its weakest. There really was very little effort to kind of show that he could roll up his sleeves and deal with their kitchen table problems, and I think that lost opportunity will be significant if they can't figure out a more effective way to convince people that they're in there, kind of under the hood, solving problems. I think it is going to be a problem for McCain and probably force him back into a strategy that focuses on disqualifying Obama.
But isn't that a risk he would take? Let me ask Mark this, because just politically, if he lays out a litany of things he's going to do, a new vision as a maverick, he either goes the ideological route, which makes that room happy, the red meat ideological route, rolling back the New Deal, cutting taxes dramatically, maybe a more hawkish foreign policy. Then he risks the middle. Didn't he have a Hobbes's choice there?
Well, the other thing you have to remember is I'm not sure that this new this reform message is fairly new, and I think it may actually have been driven in a kind of chicken and egg way by his choice of Sarah Palin. Up till less than almost a little bit more than a week before the convention, our reporting suggests that McCain very much wanted to pick his friend Joe Lieberman. I think if he had picked Lieberman, it would have been a different message. It would have been bipartisanship. It would have been experience. I think at the last minute he went to Palin, and I think because of her life story and her image as a reformer, I think they decided to go with the reform message. So I'm not sure that they actually have the specifics lined up behind that message. Maybe we'll see more of that in the coming days.
Well, it's a stunning
Chris?
development, gentlemen, because if that was the case, and that was reported by the New York Times' Elizabeth Bumer, and I believe Andrea's on that story too, Mark, that he was really edging up close and was probably talked out of it by his people. What a dramatic change. Let's watch now John McCain speaking last night. It's such an amazing confession, I thought, for a major acceptance speech. Here he is talking about, I believe this bite is him sort of recounting the sins, if you will, of the last 8 years.
I fight to restore the pride and principles of our party. We were elected to change Washington, and we let Washington change us. We lost the trust of the American people when some Republicans gave in to the temptations of corruption.
Mark, I've been following politics since I was about 10 years old, and I've never heard a political party candidate admit the sins committed by, not himself, his party.
Look, you know, when Sarah Palin was up there talking about the outside of the reformist message, it was very credible because she's about as far away from Washington as you can get. She does have a record. I mean, we're going to look at it. We're going to scrutinize it. But clearly, there's some evidence that she stood up to special interests and so forth. I mean, you know, McCain has some record as a reformer, as a maverick. But the fact is he's been a creature of Washington for decades now, and it just, you know, watching that speech in the hall last night, it just didn't come across credibly. And you know, you talked about staging. And perhaps it's a little bit unfair to dwell on these superficial things, but you know, also if you're going to say you're a reformer, at one point he said almost everything in Washington needs to be changed. Well, you have to have a sense that you have somebody who has sort of the energy and the drive to go in there. He wasn't projecting that last night. I think some of this that screen behind him sort of made him look like he was in an aquarium most of the night. You know, so I mean, I think I'm not sure that part of the message went off that well.
Chris,
go ahead.
Yeah, I was going to say that kind of rhetoric reflects the overarching strategic, reality of this campaign, which is that John McCain cannot win simply by unifying Republicans. He has to win independents in order to win, which is not true in reverse, by the way, for Barack Obama. And the reason is because Democrats now outnumber Republicans in the electorate. In 2004, Bush was able to win because he was able to drive up Republican turnout to the point where it equaled Democrats. He lost independents and still got elected. John McCain has to find a way to try to narrow that partisan ID gap, that intensity gap, and to also try to reach out to the middle. And as we have said, I mean, Sarah Palin is an attempt at a twofer here, that with the social conservative views to try to get some energy in the base, she certainly electrified the hall on Wednesday, and hoping that with her kind of reformer ID that he can reach out to the middle. But I think the piece that was missing last night was process reform, yes, policy outcome, not so much. And as Mark said, not the energy. I mean, the issue about his age, I don't think, is whether he is competent to be president. It's whether he is forward-looking, has new ideas, a vision, the energy to change things. And I don't think he conveyed that very effectively last night.
I think the question is there a McCain future?